Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we will be in Ezekiel chapter 29 verse 1 through chapter 30 verse 26. In the 10th year, in the 10th month, on the 12th day of the month, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, turn toward Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and prophesy against him and against all Egypt. Tell them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am against you, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great monster lying in the midst of its waterways, who has said, My Nile is my own, I made it for myself. I will put hooks in your jaws and stick the fish of your waterways to your scales. I will haul you up from the midst of your waterways, and all the fish of your waterways will stick to your scales. I will leave you in the wilderness, you and all the fish of your waterways. You will fall into the open field, and will not be gathered up or collected. I have given you as food to the beasts of the earth and the birds of the sky. Then all those living in Egypt will know that I am the Lord, because they were a reed staff for the house of Israel. When they grasped you with their hand, you broke and tore their shoulders. And when they leaned on you, you splintered and caused their legs to be unsteady. Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am about to bring a sword against you, and I will kill every person and every animal. The land of Egypt will become a desolate ruin. Then they will know that I am the Lord, because he said, The Nile is mine, and I made it. I am against you and your waterways. I will turn the land of Egypt into an utter desolate ruin from Migdol to Syene, as far as the border with Ethiopia. No human foot will pass through it, and no animal's foot will pass through it. It will be uninhabited for 40 years. I will turn the land of Egypt into a desolation in the midst of desolate lands. For 40 years her cities will lie desolate, in the midst of ruined cities. I will scatter Egypt among the nations, and disperse them among foreign countries. For this is what the sovereign Lord says. At the end of 40 years I will gather Egypt from the people where they were scattered. I will restore the fortunes of Egypt, and will bring them back to the land of Pathros, to the land of their origin. There they will be an insignificant kingdom. It will be the most insignificant of the kingdoms. It will never again exalt itself over the nations. I will make them so small that they will not rule over the nations. It will never again be Israel's source of confidence, but a reminder of how they sinned by turning to Egypt for help. Then they will know that I am the sovereign Lord. In the 27th year, in the first month, on the first day of the month, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon made his army labor hard against Tyre. Every head was rubbed bald, and every shoulder rubbed bare, yet he and his army received no wages from Tyre for the work he carried out against it. Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am about to give the land of Egypt to King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. He will carry off her wealth, capture her loot, and seize her plunder. It will be his army's wages. I have given him the land of Egypt as his compensation for attacking Tyre, because they did it for me, declares the sovereign Lord. On that day I will make Israel powerful, and I will give you the right to be heard among them. Then they will know that I am the Lord. My apologies. What's up? It's a cat. Of course it's a cat. Ezekiel chapter 30. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, prophesy and say, This is what the sovereign Lord says. Wail, alas, the day is here, for the day is near. The day of the Lord is near. It will be a day of storm clouds. It will be a time of judgment for the nations. A sword will come against Egypt, and panic will overtake Ethiopia, when the slain fall in Egypt, and they carry away her wealth and dismantle her foundations. Ethiopia, Put, Lud, all the foreigners, Libya, and the people of the covenant land will die by the sword, along with them. This is what the Lord says. Egypt's supporters will fall, her confident pride will crumble. From Migdol to Syene they will die by the sword within her, declares the sovereign Lord. They will be desolate among desolate lands, and their cities will be among ruined cities. They will know that I am the Lord when I ignite a fire in Egypt, and all her allies are defeated. On that day, messengers will go out from me in ships to frighten overly confident Ethiopia. Panic will overtake them on the day of Egypt's doom, for beware, it is coming. This is what the sovereign Lord says: I will put an end to the hordes of Egypt by the hand of King Nebuchadrezzar of Babylon. He and his people with him, the most terrifying of the nations, will be brought there to destroy the land. They will draw their swords against Egypt and fill the land with corpses. I will dry up the waterways and hand the land over to evil men. I will make the land and everything in it desolate by the hand of foreigners. I, the Lord, have spoken. This is what the sovereign Lord says: I will destroy the idols and put an end to the gods of Memphis. There will no longer be a prince from the land of Egypt, so I will make the land of Egypt fearful. I will desolate Pathros. I will ignite a fire in Zone, and I will execute judgments on Thebes. I will pour out my anger upon Pelusium, the stronghold of Egypt. I will cut off the hordes of Thebes. I will ignite a fire in Egypt. Cyrene will writhe in agony. Thebes will be broken down, and Memphis will face enemies every day. The young men of On and of Pi Beseth will die by the sword, and the cities will go into captivity. In Taphanes the day will be dark when I break the yoke of Egypt there. Her confident pride will cease within her. A cloud will cover her, and her daughters will go into captivity. I will execute judgments on Egypt. Then they will know that I am the Lord. Train. In the 11th year, in the first month, on the 7th day of the month, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, I have broken the arm of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Look, it has not been bandaged for healing or set with a dressing so that it might become strong enough to grasp a sword. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says: Look, I am against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and I will break his arms, the strong arm and the broken one, and I will make the sword drop from his hand. I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations, and disperse them among foreign countries. I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon, and I will place my sword in his hand, but I will break the arms of Pharaoh, and he will groan like the fatally wounded before the king of Babylon. I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon, but the arms of Pharaoh will fall limp. Then they will know that I am the Lord when I place my sword in the hand of the king of Babylon, and he extends it against the land of Egypt. I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations and disperse them among foreign countries. Then they will know that I am the Lord. Seems like a common refrain in Ezekiel. Then they will know that I am the Lord. And how will they know? I think one of the reasons is that Ezekiel is saying it beforehand, and saying it about these mighty nations that people didn't think would fall, like Tyre and Egypt. And as such, Ezekiel's prophesying their downfall quickly here. And thus, when they do fall, they'll remember that, oh yeah, the Lord said that they would fall. And so, then they will know that He's the Lord. I think it's also for providing a punishment for the sin that is. When wickedness goes unchecked, people have the tendency to say, where's God? But then, in this particular case, oh, yeah, wickedness is getting punished. So, it's interesting to me that in Ezekiel 30, you have a dispersal of Egypt, but also a gathering up of Egypt again after 40 years, which seems odd to me, considering that, Israel came out of Egypt and then wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. So I'm not sure why necessarily this time period here. Is it actually in Ezekiel 41? Or 31? Can't find it now. That's because we were in 29 and 30. Whoops. Just wondering what David Guzik has here. Oh, interesting. God promised that there would be a great devastation to Egypt lasting 40 years. It would be a desolate nation with cities that are laid waste. Because no such 40-year period is known in Egyptian history, some claim a literal fulfillment of the prophecy was never intended, and that it be taken as hyperbole, but there is nothing in the context that would indicate a shift from literal to figurative. As the leaders and people of Judah would be conquered and scattered, so would the Egyptians. God promised to disperse them throughout the nations. Berosus, the historian of Babylon, states that Nebuchadnezzar, after he had conquered Egypt, took great numbers of the captives to Babylon. Others undoubtedly fled to neighboring areas, as in similar cases. Yeah. And regarding the restoration, this is the only instance in the book where the prophet speaks of the restoration of a nation other than Israel and Judah. Wright explained his understanding of this promised limited restoration. The restoration of Egypt came under Greek rule, and Alexandria especially became an important center of Judaism and Christianity. Well, carrying on, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32, through chapter 12, verse 13. And what more shall I say? For time will fail me if I tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and prophets. Through faith they conquered kingdoms, administered justice, gained what was promised, shut the mouths of lions, quenched raging fire, escaped the edge of the sword, gained strength in weakness, became mighty in battle, put foreign armies to flight, and women received back their dead, raised to life. But others were tortured, not accepting release, to obtain resurrection to a better life. And others experienced mocking and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, sawed apart, murdered with the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins. They were destitute, afflicted, ill-treated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains and caves and openings in the earth, and these all were commended for their faith, yet they did not receive what was promised, for God had provided something better for us, so that they would be made perfect together with us. I love that engine braking. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, we must get rid of every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and run with endurance the race set out for us, keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set out for him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. Think of him who endured such opposition against himself by sinners, so that you may not grow weary in your souls and give up. You have not yet resisted to the point of bloodshed in your struggle against sin, And have you forgotten the exhortation addressed to you as sons? My son, do not scorn the Lord's discipline, or give up when he corrects you, for the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and chastises every son he accepts. Endure your suffering as discipline. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there that a father does not discipline? But if you do not experience discipline, something all sons have shared in, then you are illegitimate and are not sons. Besides, we have experienced discipline from our earthly fathers, and we respected them. Shall we not submit ourselves all the more to the Father of spirits and receive life? For they disciplined us for a little while, as seemed good to them, but he does so for our benefit, that we may share his holiness. Now all discipline seems painful at the time, not joyful, but later it produces the fruit of peace and righteousness for those trained by it. Therefore, strengthen your listless hands and your weak knees, and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but be healed. Yeah. Yeah, I think an important point is that not everyone on the list was sinless and a perfect example of morality, and perfectly in line with everything that God wanted them to do. I think you don't have to look very far to find problems with Gideon and Samson, but you can see the faith that they exhibited in select situations. So, yeah, and I think apart from Jesus, you won't find anybody who's perfectly good or perfectly evil, for that matter. Yeah. The author of Hebrews highlights the fates of some of these people, how they experienced great suffering, bloody deaths, for the promise. And exhorts us to continue in our removal of sin from our lives, and resisting it, and running with endurance the race set out for us, and keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, which is very, very important. So, carrying on, Psalm 112, verses 1 through 10. Praise the Lord. How blessed is the one who obeys the Lord, who takes great delight in keeping his commands. His descendants will be powerful on the earth. The godly will be blessed. His house contains wealth and riches. His integrity endures. In the darkness a light shines for the godly, for each one who is merciful, compassionate, and just. It goes well for the one who generously lends money and conducts his business honestly, for he will never be upended. Others will always remember one who is just. He does not fear bad news. He is confident. He trusts in the Lord. His resolve is firm. He will not succumb to fear before he looks in triumph on his enemies. He generously gives to the needy. His integrity endures. He will be vindicated and honored. When the wicked see this, they will worry. They will grind their teeth in frustration and melt away, and the desire of the wicked will perish. Yeah. I think that's really neat. That Psalm 112, verse 7, he does not fear bad news. He has confidence. He trusts in the Lord. And I think that's an awesome growth goal, in that we trust the Lord even when we get bad news, because we know that all things work together for the good of Christ and those who love him. So, Finally, Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17. As iron sharpens iron, so a person sharpens his friend. Yeah. I think that's another reason why community is important. It gives us an opportunity to sharpen one another. Okay, well, thank you for joining me today. Hope you have a great day.